Jeff has been helping me so much, for which I am grateful. For many years, I did the bulk of the work in the family while he went through medical school and residency. It wasn't that he wouldn't help, it was that he just wasn't around to help. But after he wasn't as busy after training, I realized that his demanding career wasn't the only issue. I hadn't learned a very important principle. It was not anything that was taught to me. This is an area that I didn't understand for so long. But when I figured it out, it changed my marriage for the better. I learned, practiced, and became a good receiver. What does that even mean? One area has been on Sundays. My kids love crepes. When my oldest kids discovered them, they asked me to make them every morning for breakfast. School days were way too hectic for crepes, so I told them that Sundays were the only days I made crepes. It became a tradition, and I made crepes for breakfast. I have made them for years and years. Now, these days, I record this podcast every Sunday morning, and often I have church responsibilities on Sundays. In the past, I've had to get to church early to play the organ. Other years, I've had meetings. We also host an FHE LGBTQ meeting on Sunday evenings. Some Sundays, Sundays can just be busy. Because of this, my husband has taken on a lot of work. Sundays, he's usually home and he makes the kids the crepes. He often makes Sunday meals or helps me with it. And he sometimes makes the food for the FHE group as well. I usually don't need to ask. He helps with laundry and cleaning. Saturdays is our deep cleaning day, and everyone in the house takes a part of the house to clean, including him. He helps with driving the kids to school or activities when he's able. And I so appreciate his willingness to do lots for me and my family. My friends have said things like, "Your husband is way more helpful than mine," or "My husband isn't like yours." They believe they just married a different man and they don't have any control over this. This isn't true. It used to be this way, and I didn't get near as much help as I do now and have for years. Receiving is an especially important concept to understand and apply in a marriage relationship. I've now coached many women who haven't been good receivers, and they didn't really understand it either, like I didn't. A scripture in Matthew sheds light on the subject. Receiving well is an important principle if you want your husband's help, or if you want gifts from him or compliments, or basically to do things for you without even being asked. The King James Version of this scripture reads, "For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away, even that he hath." So the Joseph Smith translation in Matthew 13:12 has an important interpretation. Whosoever receiveth instead of hath shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever continueth not to receive, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. When I looked up the synonyms for the word receive, the words that struck me totally made sense. Guess what one of the words was? Suffer. Receiving could actually feel like suffering, to experience or to be subject to, accept with approval or favor, agree or consent, or answer affirmatively. Marriage examples of receiving might be receiving a gift, a compliment, an apology, a proposal, an invitation, help. If we intentionally choose to receive, we decide to accept the terms being offered, or we are grateful and are in favor of what is being offered. The strange part is it may involve a little suffering on the receiver's part. Let me explain. I've coached many women on this, and when discussing receiving, one woman told me that her husband used to buy her flowers from an expensive floral shop, but it caused her to suffer some. Of course, it was because of the thoughts she had about the flowers, not because he gave her flowers. She appreciated the flowers and the gesture, but she told her husband that he could have just gotten them at Costco because they are much cheaper there. And she told him that they didn't and couldn't afford these flowers. And she was just trying to help him to see that she didn't really need anything expensive. But instead of expressing gratitude and receiving with acceptance or approval, this gift was received with some criticism. And I have done the same thing many times in my marriage. What I noticed about myself and my clients is that we don't often realize we are criticizing. We believe we are helping our husbands, but this helpfulness creates the opposite of what we most desire, which is love and appreciation from our husbands. When he brings home flowers, that is what he's trying to show us. It may not be the way we wish he would, but in this case, in an effort to be fiscally responsible, this wife hurt her chances of receiving from her husband in the future. What used to be given is taken away. Case in point, this particular wife hasn't received flowers from her husband in years. I wasn't a good receiver for many years in my marriage. Early on in my marriage, my husband gave me lingerie for special occasions. We had hardly any money, and I considered them gifts for him instead of me. It was not that I didn't want them, but it's not what I would have chosen. I told him at one point to never give me lingerie again because it was a gift for himself. I can assure you that I did not receive that gift for many years until I learned this concept because I had totally shut him down. I didn't realize then that receiving sometimes might even feel a bit like suffering. What I also didn't realize is that my husband and most men love to give, but it must be received well to be reinforced. Husbands want to please their wives. This is very true. The wives you see whose husbands always seem to be doing more and giving more than your husband does have learned the art of receiving well. In many cases, the receiver must work on choosing an abundant mindset. It's not always easy or natural, but well worth the effort. One woman in a group coaching session I held had been married for many years. She told the group that her husband is an amazing giver. She shared many examples. She also shared her secret. She is an amazing receiver. One example she gave us was that her husband bought her a painting. She didn't feel it matched with the decor of anything in her home. She didn't mention that. On this group Zoom call, she actually had the evidence. This painting was hanging behind her where it was displayed on a wall. She moved the camera and showed us the painting. She received this gift with appreciation when she was given it. She said it took some time to figure out where to put it, but she showed genuine appreciation for his thoughtfulness. Notice it wasn't in a prominent place in the house, but she hung it. She said that she'd actually grown to love it, as it symbolized to her that her husband thought of her and wanted her to have it when he bought it. I've realized listening to her story that when I see the gift for what it is, as an extension of my husband's love for me, I can't help but feel grateful. I receive his gift with approval and consent, and I choose to enjoy the gift. And choose is the important word there. I try really hard to express appreciation for any gifts that my husband gives me now. I never return his gifts. I'd rather hide them in the closet, unopened, than to be unappreciative. When I am grateful, my husband extends himself in many ways. I truly do receive an abundance. But if I say I do not want the gift, or I deny it, or I'm not grateful, or I don't approve of it, accept it, it's not the right one, it will be taken from me. Maybe not in that moment, but in the future. Think back on the times in your life when you haven't received well. What has happened in the future? What I found is that it is taken from me. The main reason why is that the underlying message I was inadvertently okay, I'll try this again. Inadvertently sending was that my husband did it wrong. To this day, I remind myself over and over, I'd rather be happily married, happy, than be right. One very common way that I used to not receive well was when my husband made efforts to help me with the kids. His ways were different than mine. Men parent differently, but not necessarily wrong. Many women say that they hate to leave their children in the care of their husbands. They even fear for their children's safety. Often they cite examples when the children got hurt on their husband's watch. Or they say that they can't come home, the house is a mess, or the kids haven't done their schoolwork, or they are still awake and it's late. And I ask them things like this: have the kids ever been hurt on your watch? They usually discover that the kids have gotten hurt while they were in charge as well. What we focus on increases. We will find what we are looking for. When we search for where our husbands have fallen short, when they are in charge, we will surely find it. But what about flipping it around and trying to appreciate him for watching the kids? That's what I chose to do eventually. Nothing has ever gone permanently wrong when he was watching the kids. He may not do things as I would, but I get a break, which is much needed self-care. I've also found that my husband's way, although different than mine, is sometimes even better. As I look for what he's doing right, I find it. Because my husband wasn't around much early on in our marriage because of his vocation, I felt like I knew how to do the child rearing. I felt I knew the right way to care for the kids, and I explained it to him regularly. My baby liked things a certain way, and he should do them that way. I constantly helped him in this way. In all honesty, I really did think I was helping, but my helping felt like judgment on his end. The more I suggested the way I would do things, the less help I got. So when he finally was home, even with his crazy schedule, he wasn't super eager to hop in and help. Then I felt resentful and blamed him that I had to do it all. Does this sound familiar? I don't think I'm the only one with this problem because I've coached lots of women. Is your husband sitting on the couch while you take care of the children? The way I cleaned the house was also the right way. My husband would help me clean, and instead of expressing gratitude, I would notice what he hadn't done in, which was my way. I'd mentioned to him that I think you forgot to wipe off the counters. Once again, he felt judged instead of acknowledged. What this created was his help being taken away. Now I thank him for helping to clean the kitchen. And when he's not looking, I grab a cloth and I wipe off the counter. Believe me, it's way better to get some help than none at all. I know from experience. Receiving well includes compliments. When your husband has given you compliments in the past, have you said, thank you? Thank you so much. I appreciate this. Or have you mentioned that you could lose a few pounds or you didn't do as well as you'd have liked? Instead, be so grateful when he gives you a compliment. Express how much it means to you that he noticed. Acknowledge how much you appreciate the compliment. You will get more compliments. The answer to getting more of what you want from your husband, the mystery that eludes many wives and used to elude me, is to receive more graciously. Express gratitude for everything your husband does that you wish he would do more of. Catch him doing the tiniest thing and express gratitude. Notice what he does or wears and compliment him. Say and do what you wish he would do, but not because you want that to happen for you in return. Do it from a place of authenticity, of being the wife you want to be. If you are only doing it from a place of wanting him to change and give you what you need, that's manipulation, and he will feel it from you. It will make things worse, not better. Only give from a good place, whether it's compliments or gifts or appreciation. If you can't, better not to give it at all. You must give, be able to give and expect nothing in return. Christ constantly was an amazing example of this. He gave expecting nothing in return. As I always say, these relationships are our PhD in becoming more like Jesus Christ. Rhonda Byrne says, 2,000 years have passed since those words in Matthew were recorded, but they are as true today as they ever were. If you don't take the time to be grateful, you will never have more, and you will lose what you have. The promise of the magic that happens with gratitude is in these words. If you're grateful, you're going to receive more, and you will have an abundance. So how do I know this works? Because I have practiced this principle for years in my marriage. Like everything, it's a work in progress. I completely changed the dynamics of what used to be. I've also coached many women on this, and I've heard of all of their experiences of receiving more from their husbands when they freely give. Why? Because this is a true principle. Jesus is not the only one who taught this principle or concept. It is a universal truth in every major religion in the world. So let's apply this principle of receiving to one more scripture in Matthew. It's Matthew 12, 43 through 45. And it's about this evil spirit that possessed a man. And in 43, it says, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and findeth none. Then he saith, I will return into my house from whence I came. So he's going to go back to the person that he possessed. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. Then goeth he and taketh himself with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of the man is worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. So what does this mean? It's kind of confusing. Does it mean to hold on to bad habits because you don't want things to multiply and get even worse? Keep complaining about what you're not receiving from your husband with your mother or your sister or your friend. Maybe tell 7 more women about your husband and how he's not measuring up. Jared Halverson shares the key in how he understands this concept, and I think it's so good. He says the key to this scripture is in the phrase empty, swept, and garnished. He explains, when you've cleaned out the negative, that's not enough. So it's not enough just to quit complaining about your husband or to refrain from telling him how to do it your way or what you consider the right way. Don't leave the space empty, swept, and garnished. That doesn't work. Unoccupied, vacant, and clean is still a problem. It's like you're a cheap motel with a neon sign that says vacancy, come and stay here. No, you want to be a luxury hotel, that kind of accommodation instead. You want to create a hotel where every room is occupied. Why? Because we all know that bad habits, once rejected, have a tendency to peek in the window and to knock on the door. I know how hard it can be to choose to receive help or compliments or gifts. Am I sure I want to not just mention that when he was cleaning, he missed a few things? And even if it's maybe a kind tone, can I do it? Mention that my daughter's dress is put on backwards by him, or that expensive gift he bought, I just don't even like it. Your brain will tell you how important it is to bring this up. In the future, if you don't bring this up and you don't have your own back, then it will happen again and again. Elder Holland said it this way. He says, we often cast out the devil, but then give him our forwarding address. So what's the key, according to Jared Halverson? Replace the bad habit of not receiving with light. Let in the light. How I've personally let in the light is in showing appreciation. I'm praying every day to feel it. Gratitude chokes out the negative because you bring in so much good. What doesn't work is just trying to stop the habit with willpower, clenching your teeth, attitude adjustment. Nope, we've got to replace the sin of judgment and criticism. Are you leaving yourself wide open? Is your house empty and swept and garnished? Let's furnish it. Fill up your life with light and create new beliefs full of thoughts about being a good receiver and why it matters. So here are some of examples of great thoughts and questions to fill up your hotel. In what area of my marriage can I choose to receive? What will I say next time to receive a compliment? My husband bought me blank because it's the way of showing love and appreciation to me. That's his way. I want to be a wife who appreciates instead of criticizes. When I gladly receive, I will have an abundance. I am so blessed to have a husband who tries to please me. One of the greatest gifts to have is someone to love. My husband wants to please me. I'm curious about how receiving could change my marriage. Spend a few minutes thinking of what thoughts might work for you. Your marriage will change for the better. So glad you spent the time to be here with me today. Next week, I'll address how many of my clients have started to receive what they want. I'll share the best approach to not just receiving what you may not want, but expressing what you want in a way that generates generosity. Until then, seek and expect miracles. If you recognize that you need extra help with anything I teach, visit charlotteshieldscoaching.com to book a free mini session. We'll take a look at any specific issues and we'll get you some clarity. See you next time. I'm doing